Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the presentation webcast of Global Finance World Best Foreign Exchange Providers 2015 Call for Entries. I am Andrea Fiano, the editor of Global Finance, and with us today is our managing editor, Denise Bedell.
The goal of the conference call today is to provide some additional information to call for entry entrants about what we have changed this year in terms of the FX Provider Awards, how we have changed our methodology, how we have updated the awards categories themselves, and also to provide entrants with some best practices in terms of the awards entries. The call for entries itself will be released today. The deadline for entries is October 6th, and we will announce our winners on October 27th of this year. And the awards, as usual, will appear in our January 2015 issue of the magazine.
In this conference call, we will present and explain the changes to the methodology for these awards, the changes in the call for entries, the best practices for entries based on our experience from the previous years, and of course we will have time for questions and answers on the specifics of these entries and these awards.
A couple of housekeeping points before we get going. As Andre mentioned, we will have a question time at the end of the presentation. If you'd like to ask a question, you can do so by posting in the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel to the right of your screen. Also, if you would like a copy of the presentation, please feel free to drop us an email and we will send it out to you. The contact details will appear at the end of the presentation. And now, without further ado, we'll move on to the presentation.
Well, as far as the changes to the methodology this year, we are conducting research and interviews with market participants, more so than in the past, and the idea is to get an assessment of the different players in different regions and different markets. There are changes in the call for entries. We'll get into more details on that. There is, and this is new, a readers polls on these different categories in order to get from our readers their opinion who the best are in the specific areas. And we will also use, as we have done with other awards, a panel of experts for both global and regional awards. The experts will also assess and help us to determine and choose the best players in every single market, region, or product.
In terms of the call for entries, the major change this year is that we have incorporated a detailed data drill down to look at global and regional volumes and product offerings, and also by country volumes and product offerings. The goal here is to really get a lot more information, a lot more data to make use of in our decision making. Now we'll go into the best practices for submissions.
Well, it's very important that when you submit your call for entries, you specify which awards are you entering for specifically and provide information related to those categories. In other words, be specific, and the more specific you are, the better it is for us. Provide detailed data and break down this data by region, country, and categories. Again, more precise, more specific, more helpful for us. For the sake of the overall operation of choosing and selecting the winners, we need the data to be provided in US dollar equivalents. We also need the information you provide to be succinct. In the past, some of these entries were extremely long, hard to work on for us. So being short and to the point with the right data and the right information will be very helpful for all. You also should provide factual information supporting your entry. Why do you exactly deserve to win in that category of that specific country? Tell us more as far as, for example, what has changed, what is new from previous years in terms of your coverage, your volumes, your market share. This is very important. In the past, we noticed that the more detailed information on this helps our selection process. Again, provide a summary of why you stand out and focus on the categories for which you are entering. The least generic applications and entries are usually the best ones for us, and even for the banks that provide this information, the players, the financial institutions. Now, it helps also to have points of comparison with competitors. You can tell us that according to your data, you are #1 in a specific product or in a specific country. But the rank should be based on data. Don't just tell us you are the best. As much as you can, provide data that prove that you are the best, if you are the best. And we have noticed over the year, in this and in other awards, that there is a strong correlation between those entrants that supply in-depth and factual data and our winner list. In other words, some of the best submissions end up by being the winning submissions just because of the nature and the depth of the information they provide.
Some additional points. It would be useful to us if you could provide information on what tech companies or platforms you use by name, if possible, how you as an institution guard against fraud and how that has changed in recent years. That's very critical and very interesting for our selection process. Also, it would be interesting to find out how you are innovating. So any information on that, again, very specific data or information would be the best. Also, any ties that you're making to other bank product lines would be of interest. And given our remit as a global financial publication, we're quite interested in what exotic currencies you deal in. It ties very closely into our global and emerging markets focus. And finally, any information that you can provide on how you help your clients in a hands-on way, particularly as commoditization continues in the FX markets, that would be definitely of use. How you enhance your product offering beyond your basic ability to execute a trade. And now we'll go on to the categories.
The categories are, starting from the Global Award for the Best Global FX Provider, followed by regional awards for North America, Latin America, Western Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, the Nordic countries, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific. Please.
In terms of best FX research and analysis, we look at FX research, fundamental analysis, technical analysis, forecasts, and strategy and hedging. And then in terms of trading systems, we look at bank systems, independent systems, and the best retail solution.
We have a long list of countries that we will assign specific awards for. The list is here. It will be available. I'm not going to read all the single countries, but you can see that is a large and extended list of countries. So for that or for more details, you can also give us, contact us.
Okay, now we're ready to move on to the question period, which is one of the key focuses and reasons for the call today. We have a number of questions already. First of all, do you need to submit an entry to be considered for the awards?
Well, the answer is not necessary. It helps a lot to submit an entry because we have all the data then. And as I said, the more precise and detailed data are always helpful, but to be specific and technical, the answer is no. We try to give the awards and assign these awards to the best players in those specific categories.
How do you use the different elements to choose a winner?
Well, there is not, I mean, I'm sure that Denise will add something to this answer, but I don't think there is a mathematical formula for that. We're trying to compare different players in different markets, and we're trying to get enough information from the applicants or from the specific entries and from market players in order to assess and decide, make our decision. That's why we have expanded the sources that we work on. We have added the market participants, we have the readers poll, and of course the readers are people in the industry. We also have the panel of experts. We're trying to get as much as possible information from different sources in order to have a balanced or make a balanced decision.
Do any specific criteria carry more weight in your overall decisions?
Go ahead, Denise.
Again, this ties into what Andrea was saying. I wouldn't say that anything carries more weight. The goal this year was really to expand the criteria that we're using so that we could have the most broad range of information at our fingertips when it comes to decision making.
There is a question on exotic currencies. What is considered an exotic currency? Needless to say, when it comes to foreign exchange, we are dealing and judging most main currencies, but there are what I would call, without any negative sense to it, some minor currencies, and currencies that are not necessarily as used throughout the world as they are in specific countries or regions. We want to recognize the best players in those countries and in those currencies. Even though they might have a smaller market, it is important to recognize the best. Now, this applies to both, and specifically to country awards and also to regional awards.
Do you have a preference between text only versus text and image submissions? I would say that the answer is text only is probably preferable. What we're really trying to get here is at the data, which is why we've increased the level of data in our call for entries itself, which you will see when it goes out today. We have a whole spreadsheet where we're just looking for data. So that's really what we're looking for. The more data you can give us and the more basic information, the easier it is for us to make a decision. Are all submissions treated as confidential? Will you seek permission before publishing any data? Yes, absolutely. That's another big change this year. Because we're looking for a lot more specific data, all information will be treated confidentially, and our writers will go out to any of the winners in advance before using any of the data that has been submitted from the entries. Okay, let's see.
How do you know the entrants are providing accurate data? Well, we go back to the original idea that we try to work on several sources of information, and sometimes it is the competitors that will tell us what is going on in a specific market. We have learned over the years that there are often multiple claims to be number one in a specific market or in a specific product. That increases the need of our own work and our own research to understand who really is. There are independent sources, there are the players themselves that provide information. This is actually one of the key elements of the work we do here, to understand how accurate is the data provided. And that's why we stress several times in this presentation that we need to, the more specific information is provided, the better it is for the applicants and for us in order to judge.
When is the submission deadline? The submission deadline is October 6th this year. And when will the winners be announced? They will be announced October 27th. Who has access to the data provided by the entrants? The data, as I said, will be treated completely confidentially, and the only people that will have access to it is internally at Global Finance. It will not be made available to our experts or market participants or anyone else outside of Global Finance.
I would add to this point that the experts are working with us in order to provide us their assessment of specific markets, specific regions, specific products. We will not provide them with the information that the applicants and the different entries have. In other words, we don't need them to look at this data. We want to have their opinion as to who are the best players.
One other thing that I wanted to mention actually is that another new element this year is that once we have announced the winners, we will be hosting a winners webinar with regional and global winners. So I believe it's November, although the date is not set yet. We will have more information on that as we get closer to the time. We will be hosting a webinar in a similar format to this, where we speak with all of the winners who wish to participate, and we get their views on market-changing events and what is really driving their business.
There is a question on the optimal length of the application. What is considered preferable? I would say, and I'm not trying to be philosophical, that it depends on the quality of the information you provide. If you have a lot to tell us, if you have a lot of data, if you have a lot of information, just provide it to us. We prefer very factual applications versus the ones who say a lot but do not give any proof of what they say. So, in other words, there is not an optimal length. It depends which awards you're applying for and how much information you need to provide. The more specific, as we said many times, the better, but there is not an optimal length.
And also there's a question about having a copy of the presentation from today, and absolutely. As I mentioned, the details will appear at the end of the presentation. Feel free to drop us a line and we will happily send through the presentation. And the call for entries itself will be going out today. Now, I think that that's all the questions we have time for. So let me just advance the slide. There we have the contact details. If you would like a copy of this presentation, again, please feel free to drop us an email, or if you have any additional questions, we would be happy to answer them.
And thank you very much.